I'm glad that you can join us for this really fantastic mindset and new session that we've got lined up for you today. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm just going to introduce Ben Cooper to us. Give us a wave, Ben.
Hello, everybody.
So Ben's joining us today to talk about his thoughts on mindset. Got some really good questions for him. We're going to have a lovely little chat. Now, if you want to ask Ben any questions, you can make some comments for us in the comment box, and we will try and get round to them at the end. Or if you just want to tell us how wonderful your day's going, we'd appreciate that as well. No worries.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to get cracking. So Ben, introduce yourself, tell us about your current role, and also what is WAGOLL Teaching?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Ben from WAGOLL Teaching. I'm a vice principal by day. So yeah, and I live out in Dubai. So I'm a vice principal of an international school in Dubai, head of teaching and learning, primary school teacher. And yeah, on the side, I run WAGOLL Teaching, which is basically a blog and vlog and a website where basically I share lots of teaching ideas. So, you know, WAGOLL is a word that's used quite a lot in primary schools. It stands for what a good one looks like. And the idea is it's just short, snappy, simple ideas and great ideas that can be implemented in the classroom. The idea really came from, there's lots of PD that's all about big things, big change, and implementing lots of, you know, initiatives, and they're all fantastic. But my kind of focus is I remember being told a lot about marginal gains and those little things and tweaks that you can make on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, you can't really put that into an hour's professional development, but those little things that you pick up here and there actually can make the biggest difference to your kind of teaching practice. So, and we don't have enough time. We never have enough time. So, the idea is it's really short, simple, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, and in these blogs and vlogs where basically I share really short, simple ideas within kind of 5-10 minute videos of just things you can take away and ideally just pop it straight into your lesson plan for tomorrow morning. And that's the idea really of it. So yeah, it started off as a kind of a blog, and it's now in a website, and there's resources on there. And I obviously then start to do vlogs as well, which are on YouTube and freely accessible. So yeah, that's basically what WAGOLL Teaching is. And it's WAGOLL Teaching, not WAGOLL Teacher, because again, it's nothing to do with me. I'm a vice principal, so I don't necessarily use all these ideas, but what I do is I see all these ideas being used by the teachers in my school and on the internet and in other schools that I visit. I get to go around Dubai and see other schools in practice. And so if I see a great idea, I go, oh, that's great, I'll pop it in a blog and add it to something. So it's WAGOLL Teaching and teachers sharing their ideas, they're not always my ideas.
Yeah, and I love that you're inspired by others, and it's like, you know,
yeah, absolutely.
It's what I do all the time. It's just bits and pieces that you've collected along the way that you've seen others do and thought, wow, that was a really great idea to share.
Yeah, and sometimes the best idea is the tiniest idea, the just tiniest word or something that just makes such a difference to a lesson. And yeah, I like to share those.
Wonderful. Now, you've mentioned that you are in Dubai, and it was quite funny because you were telling me how hot it was today and that you were quite looking forward to winter, whereas I'm in my fleece today because it's more like January, February at the moment rather than May. It is freezing. So what made you decide that working abroad was going to be good for you?
Yeah, I mean, you try and be modest when you kind of sat there and people are going, it's February, you know, it's cold and we're kind of like, it's getting a bit hot here. But yeah, I mean, it started a long time ago. I mean, I went from secondary school to college to university, trained as a teacher, went straight back into teaching, was absolutely loving it. But I kind of, in the back of my head, was like, I basically spent my entire life in education. And as much as that's a fantastic thing, I think, there's obviously, there was a little thing in my head that was like, well, what about, what else is there out there? And yeah, so I've been teaching 3 years in Dubai. I was not in Dubai, in Manchester, and I was with my wife at the time, and she just finished an NQT year, and we're kind of right, what next? And we were living apart at the time in Windermere and Manchester, and commuting between the two. And we're just like, right, well, let's move somewhere. And actually, it was my wife. She was like, well, I'd always fancied teaching abroad, and something kind of clicked really. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think that might be it. And it gives us an opportunity to travel. I had a few friends from university that was obviously doing the same thing. And so we did it. And it was a lot easier than I thought it was to kind of go and do it. You know, the schools in Dubai and international are used to getting teachers out, so they just, as soon as you're offered a contract and you sign it, they do pretty much everything for you, provide a few documents, and they book your flights and make it as easy as possible. And so we moved out 6 years ago on a 2-year contract, and I'm still in 6 years later, loving it. It's a great opportunity to travel and see the world. You know, Dubai is a very kind of diverse place, but it's also surrounded by a lot of land, so you can travel to Asia and Africa and back into Europe as well, really, really easily. But also, I really found a love for the international context of schools. You know, teaching kids when I was in the classroom. You know, out of 25 children, 20 of them there was 20 different nationalities. So gaining that experience of culture and stuff, and that kind of melting pot of diversity was really enjoyable for me. So here I am here today.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about Dubai from a range of people, not just people that have gone out there to teach, but people that have gone out there to have a career or whatever it may be. And they've all said that it's an amazing experience in terms of the international people that are out there, and really appreciate that mixture of cultures and whatnot. It's a really fantastic place to work. Not just
I was a bit apprehensive at the point, because you work at your public service sector, that type of thing in the UK, and obviously you move to private education, and trying to get used to that is obviously there's difficulty and challenges, but at the same time you just realize that when you're in your class, the kids are still children. They're full of ideas, and the fact that they're from all over the world was just such a great experience for me. So I really enjoy it, and really enjoy working with those students and the international community, with parents and teachers as well. It's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I've known you on sort of social media for maybe about 12, 18 months, something like that, and we've communicated via Instagram and Twitter and whatnot. And what really comes across to me is that you are passionate about education, whether it be British or international education. What made you such a passionate person about teaching? What is it?
I just really enjoy it, really. I think I think the things that I'm very much passionate about teaching and learning. I like engagement. I like that interaction. It's difficult at the moment because you're not getting that, but I like that interaction with students and supporting them. And I think the key topics for me is trying to make education relevant and keep it relevant, because I think it's quite, children, every class that comes into your room and each year goes by, the children change and adapt. And I think the problem is obviously the curriculum exists and gets designed, and then there's a danger of it becoming not relevant very, very quickly. And for me, trying to make learning as relevant as possible all the time is something I'm very much passionate about. Engaging children, hooking them into their interest, and using what they're interested in to really empower what happens in the classroom. I remember growing up and all the things that we were interested in always got banned and constantly, you just get something, the children were really engaged in something, and all of a sudden it got banned from school because it was a nuisance. But the problem was because it wasn't being used to engage with students in the classroom. It could have quite easily been. And for me, I just want to try and I'm most passionate about engaging students, make things relevant and modern, the real life application, those type of things really drive what really teaching and learning should be about, and what really makes me tick, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really does come across so well in all your social media. I can see that, definitely. So the way that we sort of started communicating was, I think you published something about growth mindset. I can't remember whether it was an article or a video. I can't remember now. And it was my response to that sort of got us chatting, really, wasn't it? Yeah. And so you've dabbled with mindset, I'm guessing, over at your school. So why do you think it is so important to develop children's mindsets?
I think really, I mean, the blog, I think it's a blog, and I think I did a video as well at the same time, and I don't claim to be an expert at everything. All I do is see things that work, and you obviously can see that in the children when they engage with something. You see, and you kind of ask, well, why did that happen, and why did that work, and why was it so successful? And you kind of evaluate what teachers do, and you kind of go, okay, so this is about growth mindset, and this is what's working. And so I then wrote a blog, obviously, about how to encourage growth mindset really simply, because I think there's a big misconception with it, that growth mindset, as soon as people like growth mindset, people have a misconception of it's some complicated thing, or it's a bit hippie and this type of thing. And it's, I don't know, it's not. It's just something quite simple. And actually, and I find that a lot about education, that there's a lot of things out there that when people say it, the way that people talk about it, sounds very complex, assessment for learning, all these different things. And actually, they're fairly straightforward things, but they get this language tied to them, and they get overcomplicated and actually confuse people and teachers and me, and they confuse people about what it is. And ultimately, growth mindset is just about making people believe that they can achieve things, and it's as simple as that. But how do we do that? And how do we make people believe that they can achieve anything? And really, for our students, that should be the fundamentals of what education is about. At no point, any part of their journey through education, should we be deterring students away from something that they want to do or something that they believe they can do. And it's important we look at how the schooling system works and the day-to-day practice to make sure that growth mindset is kind of that attitude and that approach to ensure that we don't deter students from what they want to achieve and what they believe they can and can't do. And that for me is really, really important. So it's important for our students to believe that, because we're talking particularly in primary, of our youngest students who literally could do anything they wanted to do at any point. And it's important we just continue to encourage that and nurture that throughout their education, throughout primary school, and obviously we then hand over to secondary school and want them to do the same. And so it is really important, because I don't think the schooling system is always very well set up for that. But I also think the day-to-day practices sometimes that we get into as teachers necessarily always support that either. So it's really important to be reflective on those little bits and things that we do every single day, and ask, are we encouraging children to believe in themselves? Or what subliminal messages are we sending out to students when we say or do these specific things? So it is really important. It should be a focal point in terms of what our students to achieve.
And you say about how we've got to believe in the children, and sometimes get bogged down with the day-to-day stuff, and for me that's where the confusion comes across sometimes. As well as believing in them, we need to sort of teach them, I'm going to teach you how to be persistent so you can believe in yourself. I'm going to teach you how to ask really clear questions. Believe in yourself. I'm going to teach you how to think, work interdependently with other people so that you can believe in yourself. It's about building those life skills as well, isn't it? Rather than just purely academic stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's it's what it's about. And again, it's that ethos, isn't it? Really, that you put into your school and your classroom that really allows those skills to come out. We want children to be confident in their ideas, but then. It's so easy to just, when a child says something that doesn't make any sense, there's that classic of, well, why did you think that? Well, that's not right. And hang on, this has come out of this child's brain. They've decided that this is the thing that they want to share with you. Whether you think it's right or wrong, you need to nurture that. And the way that you respond to that is very important. It's those tiny little moments throughout a day that happen over and over and over and over again, over weeks, over years, that slowly chip away at that growth mindset if you're not careful. And it's really important that we reflect on those tiny little things of how we develop confidence and the skills behind what really makes people, high achievers. There's nothing to do with capabilities. It's all to do with opportunities and that environment that they're in.
Yeah, and we often talk about how our opinions are not always right. What we think is not always right for somebody else as well. And like you said about embracing what those children are coming up with is better than us sort of poo-pooing them and stamping our ideas onto them. So moving on to terms of what you experienced, or how's the school encouraged the development of mindset? And is there anything looking back that you think actually we probably shouldn't have done that? Maybe we would have changed that next time, or is it all gone swimmingly well?
No, and it still doesn't go. You're never going to get it perfect, because no one's perfect, and that's the first step to growth mindset, I suppose. But I mean, what things that we've done in our school that again still need enhancing and still need working on, and by no means are perfect. But I mean, the core foundation of what we have in our school are skills. So we have what's called a learner profile. So the learner profile is a series of soft skills that kind of referred to, that I suppose added together lead to things like growth mindset. And growth mindset's there, but also it leads to, just generally leads to children being successful. So we prioritize things like risk-taking, teamwork, reflective learning, critical thinking, resilience. All those different things are all part of the learner profile, and that's visualized all over the school. And the idea is that in every single lesson, one of those skills is a part of that. So in mathematics, you might be learning to be a reflective learner at the same time. And you might be learning to be a risk taker during your art lesson at the same time. So you're almost explicitly teaching the skills, but also, threading through this risk taker attitude. And we're now at a point really where the children can say, "Oh, I was a risk taker, and I really took a risk," or "I was a great team worker." And the students are rewarded points. So our house system is all built around these skills rather than kind of success. So it's more about the process and developing those skills. So children will receive risk taker house points, or they'll receive team worker house points, or reflective learner house points, etc. So they're rewarded for demonstrating and working on those skills. So in essence, they're rewarded for the process rather than outcomes. So very rarely do they get house points for getting 10 out of 10 on a spelling test. So that's one major thing that's part of our school that I suppose coincidentally is leading to children to having more of a growth mindset. And now children are more reflective on those skills and actively want to get better at them. So that's been, one really great thing. We're currently trialing as well in year 6 and year 4. In the UK, they came up with a learning passport, which is kind of things that they could do outside of the school that kind of they should do that would enrich them, like roll down a hill and those type of things. So we actually took that and adapted it and tied it in with this learner profile. So the students now in year 5 and year 6 have a passport that they take home that has risk taker activities and reflective learner activities and all basically linked to all of those skills. And the children do those activities and they tick them off. And they're all kind of fun activities that allow children to kind of do something new, give something a go, develop new experiences, and actually hopefully discover things that they probably never had before. And so we see really that the students are really engaging that in terms of developing those skills, but in really fun and engaging ways, and broadening the horizons at the same time. So we've actually called them Horizons Passports, which I think is quite a nice name for them.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's not perfect. We're trialing it. Some students are engaging, some students don't engage at all. And even throughout all of those things, there is still the element where we have a testing system that tests a very closed kind of set of skills. And trying to find that balance between the two is obviously really challenging. And our students, are continually trying to find that balance between, wanting to do really well on the assessments. In Dubai, you get assessed every year. You kind of have we use the GL test, which is a great way of tracking the progress of those core skills of maths and English. But in terms of that growth mindset of success, trying to manage that balance between the two is a challenge at times. But also, it's also important for children to realise that is the challenge throughout your entire life.
Definitely.
You try and do things, but there will be setbacks, and you will have challenges, and you will get asked to do tests and do this and do that. But it's that that's all part of the learning process, I suppose.
Yeah, I love that how you've got all those skills, and you're not just segregating them to like a PSHE lesson or well week or whatever. It's embedded in the curriculum into every single thing that you do. And if you can be a risk taker in any subject, which means it's accessible to everybody, doesn't it? It's not pigeonholed any students at all. It's open to everybody to take part in.
And that's the idea. And that's the ideal, that it's in every single lesson. And it's probably not, it's really difficult to put it into every single lesson all the time. But over the years, and as the children move through the school, they'll be exposed constantly to this language and this focus. And so hopefully we'll develop those skills along the way.
And I also like the fact that you've mentioned about this Horizons passport, did you call it? And you've said we're trialing it, which tells me a lot about the school as well, in which you work, in terms of you're not scared of trying new things, you're passionate about achieving the goal, and if it doesn't work, that you'll go back to the drawing board and tweak it, change it, and which is great, rather than just dumping it or forgetting about it. Or it's about tweaks and changes and until it fits, isn't it? And I love that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and we're getting that feedback from, so we're trialing it in year 5, in year 6 and year 4, and we're getting feedback from parents about what type of challenges are manageable. We're trying to make them not inexpensive, so there's no cost tied to the challenges, and what's manageable for the students as well, and trying to get all that feedback. You know, we're in a very fortunate position here in Dubai. We are in a large school. We've got a lot of staff members, so we have lots of people who could take on these little roles and lead on these things, but also we're part of a company that is much wider than that, so we get a lot of support there as well. I imagine trying to do these things in a small primary school in the UK is a bit more challenging, but yeah, I think constantly having, at the end of the day, to have a growth mindset in our students, we have to demonstrate and model that as staff members as well, and think that we can try new things and also accept when it doesn't go well and reflect on it and adapt it, and that's really important as well.
Absolutely, just about role modeling those skills to the students.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unconsciously done, isn't it? And they pick up on little subtle cues, so that's great to hear that. So in terms of success stories, is there some like a maybe moment that either you've had personally with a child, with a friend, that you've just like gone, oh my God, with, in terms of developing mindsets or anything?
I think for me as a teacher, my last year of teaching, when I was in year 6 out here, I again, a student who had come from a more traditional school in the UAE, and he really found creativity quite difficult in terms of trying to, even so much where he's like, well, write me a story, have a look at the picture, what you're going to write about first, and just really he just wanted me to say, tell me what to write, like tell me what sentence to write and I'll write it for you, Mr. Cooper. And I was absolutely adamant. I was like, no, I'm not telling you what to write in your first sentence, and sitting there and trying to coax it out for him. And it took a long time, a couple of months, to really build his confidence up and strategies of how he could approach kind of a more open-ended task in terms of trying to get him to write and trying to get him to think of his own ideas and not being afraid of getting it wrong. And I'd love to say there was one magical thing that I did, and it wasn't even me, but single-handedly. But he started doing things like ECAs, and he'd do like ukulele club, and then next minute he was kind of auditioning for one of the minor roles in the school performance, and then he was then writing a bit more in class, and he was doing it slowly over many months, and actually over a year or so, he slowly came out. And I work in a through school, so we're in primary school, and now a couple of years later, I'm one of the management team, but I see him wandering around the secondary school, and he's confident. He's a bit cocky as well. He's got a sense of humour, and he's really come out of himself. And like I said, I would love to say that was all me, and I like to think that I played a little bit of a part. But I think that ethos that I was talking about of the school of providing children with opportunities to broaden their horizons, to put them outside of a comfort zone, actually fed into what he was doing in the classroom, and his personality, and everything that he was afraid of doing. He was then realised that actually, well, I can just go and do ukulele club and give it a go, and it doesn't matter because everybody's a beginner. And then that kind of mentality hopefully flowed back into the classroom, and I think it's great to be able to see him now, where he's confident, and he's really succeeding in secondary school, which I'm really happy to see. So I think that's a perfect example of how growth mindset can impact on students' well-being and development.
And that's important what you said there about how it wasn't just like an overnight thing. It wasn't a ta-da. It really was a gradual process, wasn't it? And for me, when I've been researching mindset, and it's come under a lot of scrutiny, it's come under a lot of criticism in the UK, because when it came out 3 years ago, we had a go, but then it didn't work, so we've left it now, and we don't do it anymore. It's been a bit like that, and And that's really important, because it isn't a quick fix. And we were talking about this before off air, and we were talking about these quick wins that we like and things like that. And it isn't like that at all. It is a journey, isn't it? And something that is developing over time, which is really important, why you have that culture across your school, so that when that boy's moving from class to class, he's experiencing the same culture, isn't he? Rather than this roller coaster ride.
Yeah, that's the idea. And, he'll experience that culture and the ethos, and the other students around him are part of that as well. It's every day. And that, like I talked about, I can't remember if it was on air or just before, when we talked about, that little thing that happens on one day, but if it happens over and over and over again, just that 2-second little thing that just has that subliminal message of positivity or growth mindset over, a month and over 2 months and over a year and over the whole journey throughout primary school, that will build up and amount to so much. Likewise, if you're demonstrating and modeling a negative mindset, that repeated over a long period of time slowly chips away at it. And that's why I'm an advocate for marginal gains and doing what is the smallest thing that you can do that will have ultimately the biggest impact in the future. And it's not some crazy overhaul of the curriculum where you throw away this and you chuck this and you do this and you do that. It's like, what's that one thing that I can do every single day slightly better that will add over a long period of time to benefit the students, basically. And hopefully that's what I try and achieve in everything that WAGOLL Teaching is about. But I think for growth mindset, that's really important.
Yeah, I know we've not got a couple of questions left, but I'm just looking at the comments, and we've got some that are just feeding in really nicely. So I think Gail can work at your school because she's loving what's going on and loving this idea of implementing these skills throughout the curriculum, and it's not just, and especially the reward system, and you reward the learning process rather than the success they're having. But Louisa's question actually is my next question, which is, if we're wanting to go on this journey, if we're wanting to start developing growth mindset in our schools, I've asked for my top 5 tips. Louisa just saying, how do I get started? So top 5 tips would be good. How do we get started?
Yeah, and it's a tricky thing. I think I've got some top tips that I've seen in schools, but I would also recommend that really, in terms of in terms of trying to make it get started in your classroom, I think it's important that you do kind of evaluate, whether that's you or somebody else, of just go, right, how does this classroom promote a growth mindset, and how does this classroom not promote a growth mindset? And having somebody come in and just sit and watch, or watching yourself, or just thinking, evaluating as you go through a lesson, and think about every single tiny little thing that you do, and say, right, if a child hears that or sees that or is involved with that, is that promoting a growth mindset or not? So one of my tips, and I say this quite a lot, I think I've said it on every live session that I've been in previously, is things like a simple thing is the classic, as a teacher, and everybody does it. This isn't, I'm not digging into teachers. Everybody, I still do it. You kind of say, right, you ask for an answer. You say, what is the answer? Can anyone tell me what the answer is to this question? And students put their hands up and they have a go. But there will be some students who, what you're saying is what is the answer to the question? So if you don't know what the answer to the question is, the chances are you're probably not going to put your hand up. Whereas if you swap it over, and there's lots of different ways of doing it, but you say, what might the answer to the question be? Have a guess. Then all of a sudden, it's that little subtle twist of, hang on a minute, I'm a student. I don't know what the answer is, but I think I might know what the answer is. So I might give it a go. And yeah, that might seem such like a small thing. And I know already when you're saying oh, you're changing language of this, it's just a change of language. But again, if you say that, if you change that every single day for the rest of the year, for the rest of your teaching career, and that child goes through every single class in that school, hearing what might the answer be, have a guess, have a go, then over a period of time, they'll be coaxed out and they'll really start to go, okay, I'll give it a go. And then, of course, it matters of how you respond to that question, because when the child does get it wrong because they're giving it a guess, you go, well done, that's a fantastic effort. can you explain what you're thinking about, and continue the lesson that way. You're congratulating the students on giving it a go. And again, that subtle change of language that we use on a day-to-day basis, so that can potentially have such a big impact on the students in your lessons and over their period of their schooling life within your primary school or secondary school, whatever it might be, could have actually quite a big difference on how successful they are. It's that marginal gain. Change that 1%, and if you change 100 things by 1%, you've evolved your practice by 100%. And that's one thing that I would really focus in on. Also, things like just idea generation. So things like just in the morning, get the children to come in and be a bit silly, really. So the classic question of how many uses can you find for a paperclip? It's a great one. Doesn't matter what the answers are, even if it's really bizarre. Just get the children to generate ideas, because it's great for creativity, but it's also building the confidence, as we talked about, of believing in yourself and your ideas. Even if it's silly, that starting point for primary children, believing that they have an idea that's worthwhile, is really important. And so you can change it up. How many uses do you have for a block of cheese? Whatever you like. It doesn't really matter about the question. What matters is that children have an opportunity to generate and have the confidence to share ideas, and also the fear of not getting it wrong, because it's a daft question. The sillier you make it, the less there's no wrong answers, So I think idea generation and giving children an opportunity to share ideas, no matter how bizarre they are, is a great first step of just allowing children to build their confidence with their own ideas. So I suppose that's top tip 2.
Yeah.
Top tip 3, I've popped down here actually, is obviously feedback. And obviously that kind of links to the first one in terms of the language that we use. Obviously, when the children have submitted their answers, and the feedback they should receive is they focus on the journey rather than the outcome. So even if a child gets it wrong, you're saying, fantastic, great effort. Thank you for sharing that with me. And in their work, when we're feeding back to students, if you're marking or you're giving verbal feedback or whatever it might be, always talking about the effort that they've put in, whether they've been risk takers or they've been reflective or they've really worked hard on that. It's about the process, not the outcome, because that's really just going to say to students and tell them that it doesn't matter what outcome, even if you can work as hard as you like, and you're going to get recognized for that regardless of the outcome. And I think that's really important. I know I can't quote. I know there's a study on that that's all about children being rewarded based upon their outcome or the process. And if the children were asked to were praised on the process, were more likely to challenge themselves with a more difficult challenge later on, because they weren't afraid of not getting it right, because they just were being praised on the process. Whereas the children who were being praised on the outcome feared getting something more difficult in case they didn't receive that verbal praise again.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a big one. So, if we're praising children, oh, well done, you got 20 out of 20 on your mental maths test in year 1, that's great, but they might fear then that when they go to year 2, what happens if they don't get 20 out of 20 on the mental maths test? Whether it's you're praising child, well done, you got 2 out of 20, you worked really, really hard on this mental maths test, I know you've tried so hard and you've been working really hard on those 2 questions. Doesn't really matter, they're going to receive that praise all the time, then they won't worry about moving to the next year group, because if they're confident that they're still working hard, they'll gaining that feedback on their process, then you're really going to encourage them, and they're going to continue to work hard and challenge themselves, and eventually they will be getting 10 out of 20, 20 out of 20 hopefully in the future, but they will have no fear, and that's key.
Yeah, we used to say, especially with spelling tests, if there was a 20 out of 20, we'd always say, I'm really sorry, you've got 20 out of 20, that's amazing, but I haven't challenged you enough. I need to give you something a bit more challenging next time. Always apologise, really, because we want their brain to be working and developing all the time. And then those children that were maybe getting 10 out of 20, we'd work on what we call progress points. So they would start on 0, whatever they got. So say they got 4 4 out of 20 on the first week, so it was 0 at the moment. Next week they get 6 out of 20. So we say, well, you've got 2 progress points. That's amazing. Yeah. Still putting the effort in, but they're still making progress as well.
Yeah.
And if someone's got 15 out of 20 and next week they get 17, they've still got 2 progress points. So that sort of competition in terms of how clever am I and where do I fit in almost disappears.
Yeah. You compete against yourself.
Yeah, you as a learner and what am I doing as a learner? I'm making progress.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you have to explain that to the parents as well. You know, you get parents like, oh, I'm really worried they're getting 15 out of 20 on this test. And they said, look, if they were getting 20 out of 20 on every test, they wouldn't be learning. We wouldn't be doing our job. You know, we're not doing our job if they are constantly getting, you know, full marks. So absolutely. you have to tell that to the parent. You have to share that with the parents as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I've stopped you mid-flow. Are we on number 4?
No, it's good. No, like I said, it's really good. Like I say, when I do my vlogs, I'm just speaking to a camera. So I used to get just speaking on my own. When we do live things, I have to kind of slow down, and sometimes I feel like I'm just talking. So it's good to have these like breaks. The 4th tip, I suppose, and I wrote this in my blog actually, was purposely plan to make mistakes yourself as a teacher, because first of all, the kids absolutely love it. They absolutely love pulling you up when you make a mistake. You know, as soon as you make a spelling mistake or you do something silly, they're like, "Oh, Mr. Cooper, you've done it wrong." Oh, like they all laugh at each other. They love it. But the reason why they love it is because they suddenly realise that you're just like them, and it's really important that they realise that. And doing that on purpose is even better, because you can play on that, and there's lots of levels to it. But first of all, you know, in terms of children identifying misconceptions and testing like the depth of knowledge of students, if you're making the common misconceptions, the common mistakes that the children might make, then they're really understanding why that's a misconception. And I suppose on a teaching level, in terms of the understanding of students and depth of knowledge, that's really a really powerful way of deepening children's understanding by making those misconceptions. But in terms of growth mindset, what you're also showing students is that, you know, that everybody makes mistakes and it's okay. And actually, what's really important is planning to make mistakes, but then modeling how to overcome those mistakes, to recognize that, oh, I've made a mistake. You know, you're looking around the class. What can I do now to figure out? How do I resolve this? You know, a spelling mistake. Oh, I'm not sure whether this word's spelled right. What can I do? Tell you what, Natasha, can you go and get me the dictionary? We'll have a quick flick through, and you get it out. And you're modelling, yes, when you know you fail and you make a mistake, but you're modelling how to overcome those little mistakes, and doing that all the time and throwing them in there. 1, is hilarious. 2, it deepens children's understanding of what to do, but also in terms of growth mindset, you're modelling that mistakes is okay as long as you know how to overcome them and correct yourself at a later date, and showing that resilience, I suppose, of challenging yourself and getting better at things.
And having a bit of fun is always good, isn't it? Because sometimes children do take mistakes really seriously. Yeah. And, you know, we talk about mountain molehill, and sometimes, you know, mistakes should be taken really seriously, but then other times it's not the end of the world, and having that bit of fun and banter about it, and you can have a laugh about it. It's all right.
And you know, I've also heard one teacher say, you know, there's something wrong with your work, and the child goes, what? And you go, there's no mistakes in it, and the child goes like this, and you know, and then it opens up a really good conversation, because then the student kind of goes, well, what do you mean? It's perfect. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, you've not challenged yourself enough, I'm afraid, because it's not got any mistakes in it. Yeah. Go and try and use this, but I want this to be some form of mistake. You know, I want there to be an error in it, because it means that you've challenged yourself. And just having, you know, yes, it's sensitive when the kids laugh at it, but it sends the right message to the students as well.
Yeah, I love
that. And then the other one really that I'm speaking on, I was just looking at my notes, was obviously talking. I think building on that is also talking about mistakes and what happened. You know, when you were driving to work, what did you forget? You know, talk about those things, which ties in with the previous point. But I think also just talking about what you found difficult in your school as well. You know, what did you find really challenging in terms of when you were at school and putting it back into the context. Because again, there's a perception, I think, with children, with teachers and stuff, you know, people in school that, oh, you're the teacher, so you know everything, you didn't find things difficult. And I suppose having your identity as a person and sharing that with the students, you know, I found spellings really difficult. And actually English was probably my least favorite subject, even though now I kind of write blogs and you know, this kind of thing. But and I used to just open up and they used to go, oh, Mr. Cooper, you always find spellings really difficult. And that was a way of just showing them that everyone has these challenges, and everyone has certain areas of the curriculum that they find really difficult, certain areas that they find, you know, a bit more, you know, easy or less challenging. And I think trying to have that, show that personality and that identity is really important. And also, regardless of learning, when you're having a tough day, just come in and tell the children that sorry guys, I'm feeling a bit down today because this has happened and I'm a bit tired, you know, someone woke me up, and, you know, all this type of thing. And just having those, you don't think of too many details, but just the children acknowledge that you're a human being, you find things difficult, and yeah, just modeling, I suppose, being a human being. And I think acknowledging that and not being afraid of that. I think teachers sometimes are afraid of letting their guard down because all of a sudden the children will be, you know, playing around, messing around and playing around with it. But I do think, you know, there is, you know, you want to let your guard down a little bit so that children can see that you're a human being, and you do have good days and you have bad days and you make mistakes and things don't go right. You're just modeling that you get on with it and you try your best, and if things go wrong, then you show you're positive about it, you accept it, you acknowledge it, and off you go. And you know, I also talk to teachers about not being afraid of apologizing and not being afraid of saying sorry, because, you know, you do make a mistake. You know, someone's talking in a class and you tell them off and actually you realize you got the wrong person. That's okay. And then you just go and apologize and say, you know what, actually, I made a mistake there. All those little, again, subliminal messages, not being afraid of showing your human side as a teacher, will ultimately benefit the students as well, because they'll empathize with you, but also they'll realize that they also are human beings. And so sometimes then you hopefully get to a point where the students come in and say, Miss Cooper, I've had a bit of a bad afternoon, bad morning. You know, I woke up late and I did this, and then I don't know, the dog ate my breakfast, you know, all this type of thing. And just having those conversations, you know, and building up that relationship where students aren't afraid to say, you know, I'm not feeling great today, I'm feeling a bit down, you know, I'm having a bit of a difficult afternoon. That, you know, that's perfectly okay. We're all human beings, and getting children to understand that you do have closed mindset days, as you wrote about, and growth mindset days, and days where you don't want to do it, and days where you do want to do it. It's all part of that journey, you know, and you spend so much time with these kids that they will have these times and you will have these times, and having that relationship is really important, I think.
What's come out in your 5 tips there is about creating this culture in your classroom, or indeed in your school, about this safe place to learn. You know, this is a place where I'm going to judge you, where I'm going to laugh at you. Everyone's on the same side, and it's about that building that trust and the relationship, like you say, between yourself and the children, but also between the children as a collective, isn't it? And building their relationship, rather than it being this competitive, who's the best, who ranks the best in maths, who ranks the best in English, or whatever it may be. And it's breaking down those barriers, isn't it? Which is a real fundamental. I think it's fundamental when you're trying to develop your growth mindset classroom.
Yeah. And I don't think, like I say, I think people say, right, growth mindset, how are we going to implement it in school? And they expect like a model that you kind of go, right, here you go. It's like an IKEA kit that you get out and you put together and you put it in place. And to me, it should be more natural, more, you know, organic. And it's about those little things, you know. Hopefully what I've said is nothing. You can do all of those tomorrow. You know, when we're back in school, etc. You know, but you know, you can jump on, if you're Zooming or you're in your work or whatever. You can say, you know, well, rather than what is the answer, what might the answer be? Make a suggestion to me. You know, you can create a little activity where it's just like, well, we're going to be silly. We're going to come up with our own ideas of, you know, all the uses for paperclip, and come up with bizarre ideas. I'm going to give house points for the most strangest idea. You know, I can give feedback and say, well, you know, well done for your effort. You tried really hard with that. All these things are almost resource free, and it's just about the language that you use. And that to me is what growth mindset is about. It's not about putting in a whole curriculum and purposefully putting time in. You know, it's that well-being. You know, you can't just put a well-being program in for teachers and make everybody happy, because happiness isn't about putting programs in. It's about the ethos and those little bits and pieces that happen on a day-to-day basis. And growth mindset is exactly the same.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been really interesting, but I've just got one last question for you. In terms of what the future for you and where WAGOLL Teaching's going?
Who knows? I think I'm just taking WAGOLL Teaching's obviously a side thing. What I tend to do is we're looking at doing things in school. I use WAGOLL Teaching in blogs and blogs as a bit of a diary to come up with ideas of what I've seen and piece things together. I want to continue to write, you know, blogs and continue building that bank of kind of articles up, and the vlogs as well. So they're always there because it's a video library for people to drop in on. So if they do want some quick tips of how to develop growth mindset in the school, they can click on the video. It's 10 minutes long. It's there. I've also added those YouTube clips into a podcast. It's identical, so don't watch the video and then go and listen to it on the podcast, because it's the same clip. I've just no video with it. But I know some people might want to listen to it in the car, trying to make things as easy as possible for people to access. So that's kind of the vision of WAGOLL Teaching, but with the idea of trying to get a few more teachers involved. So I know, like, you've written a follow-up article on the closed mindset and getting friendly with that, and trying to get more teachers involved in the blogging of that. So I know if any viewers are interested in writing, sharing some simple ideas, then happily, you know, take people on and to just share their ideas. And then, especially in this time as well, I am looking at potentially doing like small webinars that focus in on some of these things and just unpick it a little bit more. Again, trying to focus on, it's not about implementing new ideas and curriculums. It's hopefully sharing some ideas that can just be taken, picked and implemented, you know, immediately. So I'm looking at that because I know at the moment there's lots of teachers out there that are perhaps at home and going into schools, and it's important. I like the idea of, you know, investing time to support teachers' professional development, because I do think it's really important, but it also has to be manageable. You know, teachers can't afford all the time to go off on days of PD and go off to all these, you know, these events, because it costs money for schools, it costs money for teachers sometimes, and it's very time consuming. And we know as teachers we don't have a great deal of spare time to invest in ourselves. So hopefully by potentially looking at options of how I can do, like, you know, short, you know, hour webinars where teachers can log on and just dedicate a little bit of time to themselves, really. Hopefully, you know, that'd be something I'm quite interested in looking at over the next few months, particularly while all this crazy world is happening. I think it'd be a good thing to look into.
Sounds all very exciting. Just remind us, Ben, what's your website if people want to find out more?
Yeah, so it's www.wagollteaching.com. So that's fairly straightforward. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and then YouTube, which again is youtube.com/WAGOLL Teaching, and all the videos are on there, freely available. I try and make things, well, all my resource and everything are free to teachers completely. It's all freely available, which is hopefully my vision behind it, is trying to make it as accessible as possible for teachers across the world. You know, I work within the schools that I work with. We have Indian curriculum schools and American curriculum schools and international curriculum schools, and a whole range of different international schools within Dubai. So I try and make it as accessible for all our teachers across the world, not just UK based as well. So please check it out, and hopefully people, you know, take bits away from what's on there.
Well, you can take it from me. There's some really good stuff on there that's going to be useful. It's things that you can just pick up and take into your classroom the very next day. So we're not reinventing the wheel, are we? It's just little bits that you can try, which is great. So
absolutely, it's about sharing little ideas.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ben. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
No problem. I know, exactly, yeah.
Digitally, so it's been great. We are going to be having another couple of guests in the next few weeks. We'll be advertising those through our webpage. We hope you found it really useful today. And like Ben says, if you want to get in touch with him or find out any more of his ideas, have a look at his website, follow him on all the social media platforms, or indeed, if you've got any questions for myself and Liz about today's conversation, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So thank you very much again, Ben, for joining us, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you. See you. Bye.